Welcome to the Addison podcast, where we talk about what it actually takes to hit your first six or multi-six figures in business. I'm Addison, certified clinical hypnotherapist and online business coach for entrepreneurs. And 3 years ago, I decided that nursing wasn't for me, dropped out of nursing school, and dove into the online space. From free hypnosis audios to unfiltered conversations and business advice, this is the space for you to take radical responsibility towards creating your dream business. Let's dive in. Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have Chloe here today. I'm going to let Chloe introduce herself in just a second, but Chloe is a personal brand mentor and she helps female founders master their mind and marketing as a leader. So I was super excited to invite her onto the podcast because I feel like we align in a lot of our values. And something really cool about Chloe as well too is that she has been in the brand and marketing industry for over a decade and then transitioned into building her online business for the past 4 years. So she has a lot of insight, both sounds like in corporate as well as the online space. And she's passionate about disrupting the norm online through leadership communication and unparalleled marketing, which I'm super excited to dive into, just the branding side of things and what disrupting the norm means for her. So I'm excited to have Chloe here today. We're going to talk all things personal branding and how that looks outside of just the content that you create online. So welcome, Chloe.
Yay, thank you so much. I always struggle with introductions, so I'm like, there's so much for me to say. That was perfect, but where do I start? Okay, so yeah, it'll be 11 years, I think, this year that I've been in this kind of industry. So yeah, I've been in creative direction. I then went into marketing jobs. The one thing for me that I always do find really interesting to talk about is the fact that all of my marketing jobs were minimum wage. And I don't know if that is something that's, pushed me to be an entrepreneur or it's just given me that fire in my belly, but constantly working in jobs that were minimum wage, which is £1,350, or it was at the time in the UK, every single month for, busting my ass, working really, really hard. But yeah, so I've been in marketing roles for a decade. And then it wasn't until lockdown that I was like, okay, I need something else to do because I was put on furlough from my marketing job. And I actually dabbled a little bit in network marketing just because it's what I saw online. And it quickly became clear that my strengths were the marketing side rather than the network marketing side. So I started talking in all of these different groups and I was like, okay, I'm really good at marketing. I've been doing this for a long time. And then I actually got a social media management role opportunity come forward. So then I actually was able to quit my job in my marketing minimum wage job about 3 or 4 months later, as a social media manager. But that whole time as well, even though I was creating their marketing and their content strategy, I was mentoring these personal brands to obviously stand out. I was helping them a lot behind the scenes with even their mindset, to be honest, and just navigating business, navigating growth, navigating their brands. But I was still creating the content as well. And then I kind of stopped creating the content and moved just only into mentorship. And I've been doing that solely now for 3 years and in business for 5. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's so cool. Just to hear that transition, because I think for a lot of people in the online space, it isn't as seamless where they just have an opportunity pop up and it just feels so aligned. And my story was very similar as well too. It just kind of naturally progressed to where I am today. And it's also cool just to hear, when you're working with someone behind the scenes as like a social media manager, like that was natural for you to just help and, mentor on the marketing side of things and stuff like that. So now you mostly do mentorship, or you solely do mentorship, you said. Just tell us a little bit about like your business. Like, are you still creating content for people? Are you just mentoring on marketing? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I do not create content anymore for any of my clients. It's not a done with you service. I actually recently just got rid of a membership that I had. So I had a low ticket membership. I'm going to be doing something around that soon for sure. But I primarily just put my energy into private world and my mastermind. So it is that group and one-to-one, really diving deep into their mindset, into their leadership and into their brand strategy. So yeah, I don't create content anymore. I do sometimes miss it, but obviously well, not obviously, but I create all of my own. So I'm still very much in the creation space. I just don't offer that as a service anymore, which I think, like I said, I do miss, but it definitely wasn't my strength. I was good at it, but just not my strength. The strategy, the more the brand feeling, the brand association, the psychology behind it, the guidance, the mentoring, so much more my strength for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm excited to dive more into what personal branding is. Like I was telling you before we started this, I feel like we haven't actually had anyone solely talk about personal branding on my podcast. So I feel like it's something that we've missed and is needed. And I think that you briefly mentioned this, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's what my clients think about personal branding. There's this idea that it's just like the content you create and how you present yourself and being authentic and like showing up in a like personal brand. I feel like even when I started, around the same time that you did, like 5 years ago, I thought that that meant, oh, there's this like the fact that I show my dog on my stories, like that makes it a personal brand. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people still think that. So I want to dive deeper into personal branding. When it comes to personal branding and like mentorship and stuff, where do you start with people? Like, is it like, what do you want to be known for? Or is it deeper than that? Like, maybe just give us some insight on how you view personal branding.
Oh my God, I love, right. Obviously, I love this conversation so much. It's what I do, but there's so much that I can dive into. The first thing I'll say is that I start with people differently, but normally it comes down to their life so far in terms of like, okay, what's got you to here? Why have you started this business? Because so many people start businesses and unfortunately don't continue. And usually it's because they're out of alignment, right? So if you're in your purpose and if you're in alignment and you're like, oh my goodness, I wake up every single day doing what I love, I'm great at it, and I'm making a lot of money. I don't know what's better than that. Obviously, probably having a family and children. I'm not a mum yet, hopefully one day. But that is one of the best feelings in the world, to wake up every single day and enjoy what you do. And like I said, I had a minimum wage job that I used to dread going to work. Even though I loved the role, I loved the marketing and the brand side of it, I dreaded going to work because I wasn't appreciated and I wasn't in my like element, you know? So that is something I really tap into with my clients. And going back to what you mentioned about, so many people have that, I guess, it's almost tarnished now. People are like, right, to have a personal brand, you have to share more of you. And that's something I hear so much. And I'm like, oh, it's difficult, because if you're told to share more of you, you share everything without a strategy. You're throwing spaghetti at a wall and you're just hoping that because you've shared pictures of your dog or your coffee in the morning that you're going to get hired. And that's not how it works. There is psychology to growing a personal brand, and it's a lot around brand association. I actually just did a post on this today, so it's very fresh in my mind. But brand association is something I work on with my clients very early doors, because you can be in business 10 plus years and be kind of, stagnant. You could be okay, doing well, like making okay money, but not really, really taking off or not really in your element. It's because you haven't mastered brand association. So I'll tell you what that is. I'm sure you know, but just for everyone listening, it's when you are known for something specific. Like if someone saw a post of mine on social media, they'll think personal brand, they'll think leadership. My clients literally are like, I don't know what you're selling half the time. I just want it because I want to work with you because I think of personal brand, this brand association, right? So say, for example, you are a social media manager and you want people to know you as the go-to for creating the most gorgeous aesthetic feed for homeware brands, right? You've got an eye for detail. You maybe have a history of working for homeware brands, and you just see, maybe you've got a bit of an interior design passion as well. You're really good at creating the strategy. You know how to pop off homeware brands. You know how to make them go viral. You then build in that brand association becomes so strong and so potent in the online space that people will then hire you, not because of your coffee order or the fact that you've got a dog. As much as we want to see it, it's good for engagement. People are nosy, and that's absolutely fine. I always say, like, ultimately share what you want, but don't hang your hopes on it growing your business. That's what I always say. But if there's something in your life that has really spurred you on to do what it is that you do, or you're so passionate about it, sometimes it's a natural gift or talent as well. Sometimes we're like, well, I don't have a degree in it, I don't have the experience, so I'm just naturally really good at it. That's also a really good thing as well. So it could be experience, it could be qualifications, it could be passion, it could be your natural skills, gifts and talents, like I said. But really going all in on that, because then you'll really build that connection with your audience, and they'll say, okay, Chloe, I really think of personal brand, for example, or Lucy, she is the go-to for social media content to help me go viral on TikTok for my aesthetics brand. Or they've got these really strong values, and it's subconscious, like people don't even really notice, but you drilling that in your content, then people start it's like planting seeds over and over again in your content, and then you start to build that brand association. So just going back to your question, when I start with my clients, I always look at their background, their story, like, why are you here, why did you start, and then what brand association do we want to build, what do you want to be known for. Again, feel free to share pictures of your dog and take selfies and show your food and all the different things, but just again, that is not going to be the reason that someone hires you. So brand association is something that people look over so much because they're just like, I need to show my face. I need to take more selfies. I just need to be more consistent. I need to show up more. When actually, if there's nothing that people are associating you with as the expert or the go-to for, then all of that time and energy and money is somewhat going to waste. Of course, there can be a level of success that you can get to with that consistency, but you're really going to blow up when you've got that really solid brand association.
Yeah, I love all that. Which got me thinking, and I'm curious from your perspective on this question. I have so many questions from all of that, but I have one client that came to mind when you were talking about all of that. And when she hired me, she was actually looking for a business and mindset coach. So she's someone that like goes through hashtags and like typed in the hashtag, went through, found people that way, and was just kind of looking for someone because she knew she needed help with mindset. And she actually hired me because of my stories around my dog, because I don't know if you've seen my content, but about a year and a half, 2 years ago, my dog had to have, he's sitting behind me somewhere, he had to have 2 major surgeries, and like my business supported me being able to do that. I had to pay like $14,000 in full for a surgery. And so I tell that story a lot because it's something that I like consistently. When I think about that, I'm like, that's why I started my business. Like I started my business to be able to support different areas of my life like that, and like longevity as well too, like not just that one time. Like if that happened again, I want to, I want my business to support that. And so she actually hired me because I shared my dog and those stories. But I think that it's because it was deeper. It was a story about my values and my brand, not just, here's my dog, he got a surgery. You know what I mean? So do you have any insight on that? Because I feel like that could help people kind of see the difference between I'm just sharing my dog versus telling a story and having that be part of you and your brand.
Yes. Oh my goodness. This is really similar to me actually. So I it sounds ridiculous. If people don't have dogs, they're gonna think I'm crazy. But when I got put on furlough from my marketing 9 to 5, I got a puppy, but it wasn't for the fact that I was in lockdown. My family dog was having puppies. So it was like the only time, like it had to happen like that. And then when I went back to my 9 to 5 and I wasn't on furlough anymore, obviously I had to go into the office. And my partner's mum basically had to have my dog, and I was like, right, this is spurring me on even more to be at home with my dog. I don't want someone to tell me I can't work from home. What do you mean? And it was more so the values again, like around the fact that I wanted to manage my own schedule. I didn't want a boss to tell me that I had to go into the office and be paid minimum wage. I was like, no way. Like I want to be at home with my dog making this daily, not monthly. So it's a similar sort of thing. So I tell that story as well, where it's like I built my, not that I quit my job for my dog, but arguably, no, but I wanted to have a lifestyle that I could be at home with my dogs. And I talk about this as well, like personal branding. I think people think that they have to have a really aesthetic lifestyle, and sometimes it's actually the more relatable things that land for people. So really similar, when I was talking about my dogs, it was not necessarily the money to pay for the bills and things like that and that type of lifestyle. It was the fact that I wanted to be at home and I wanted to sort my own schedule out. I wanted to be my own boss, and the fact that my business could do that for me. So it's really thinking, when you're sharing these personal things, what's the relevancy? Sometimes you can honestly share. If you go out for dinner and there's a nice bowl of pasta and you just want to share that bowl of pasta, absolutely do it. But obviously you just don't want to rely on that solely creating your business, the fact that you go out for dinner and you have a dog, unless you're selling the pasta or you sell dog clothes, right? But if that's just a part of your lifestyle, it does connect with people. Like people are going to see you as a warm, friendly, nurturing person because you care about your dog for sure, but it just won't be the pivotal reason that someone then invests in you, especially high ticket. But if they see that you're a nurturing person and your business supports that, that's a whole other thing. Even if these people don't have dogs, they'll think, well, I've got X, Y, and Z bill that I need to pay for, or I've got a cat, or I've got a son or a daughter. They will find their own, again, brand association to that. They'll see that story and they will resonate with it in a way that makes sense for them, whether they have a dog or not. So it's thinking, okay, what parts of my life can I bring in to my content, especially stories, that almost fuel my values as a personal brand. So it's not just random. I'm not just trying to think of a random example. Like even I always talk about quitting my job at 300 followers, my dogs, my mum. I talk about my mum a lot, that we had no money when we were growing up. Instead of just sharing a picture of me and my mum at lunch, I would say this woman's really inspired me. This is something that's really encouraged me. This is this. Then they start to build those values with me again. If you have a hobby, like I'm really into reading at the moment, reading fiction, it's not completely relevant. People aren't going to hire me off the back of the fact that I read fiction books. But again, it's just building that personality and the fact that I'm a creative, that I work hard, but I also have relaxing time. People can see that I have a good work-life balance. They can see that I'm taking care of myself, that I'll pour from overflow. I'm not burnt out. Like, who wants to invest in a mentor that can't make time to do what they want to do, whether that's cuddle their dogs or read a book? So it's just thinking, how am I bringing in my everyday life or the things that I'm really passionate about into my content in a way that actually makes sense for my audience to see, that will then create those connections for someone to want to invest into me. If it is just random, like I said, share it, but just don't rely on that making you money.
Yeah, I like that. It's funny that you brought up the reading too, because I've shared on my stories how this year has been, so spacious that I've read like 7 books in January already. And like, I've had people literally be like, I want my business. Like, I'm like, everything's crazy right now. I wish that I had that time. So it is like, it depends on how you share it. It's one thing if I'm just like, picture of my Kindle. It's a whole other thing if I'm, talking through that. And I'm like, my business allows me to read something. Yesterday I read for like 3 days in the middle of or 3 hours in the middle of the day. You know what I mean?
Honestly,
So
honestly, a dream. Like, I'm on my second book of the year, which is impressive for me because I didn't read. But similarly, this time last year, well, just over a year ago, I was so burnt out that I couldn't even believe that people read fiction. I was like, if you're reading fiction, you seriously need to, like, you've got too much time on your hands. But that was a me problem because I was burnt out. Now I'm reading fiction and I'm not forced because I want to, but I'm like, no, I'm going to shut my laptop at this time because I want to have time to read. And again,
yeah.
I'm more money in my business as a result because I'm in a better headspace. I'm pouring from overflow, like I said, taking care of myself, but also working really hard. So even things like that, because I talk a lot about reading on my TikTok, I'm not expecting someone to hire me as a mentor because I read actor, but I am talking about it from a place of like, I want to pave the way. And again, this is down to leadership, right? How I'm leading myself behind closed doors is how I'm able to lead other people inside my programs or online. If I'm burnt out behind closed doors and I don't have any time to cuddle my dog or to pay the bills or to do this, to do that, how can I expect anyone to hire me?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's relevancy. It's how are you building your character online that makes sense, not just throwing things out there and hoping something sticks.
Yeah, I so resonate with that too. I think for me it was 2 or 3 years ago where I was so burnt out that I didn't have time to read. So it is like that's something that even in that period of time would have really sat with me, So okay, so brand association, and I love all of that. I feel like that's super helpful for someone who just to start thinking about like what is that for me. Going deeper than that, like what's the next step? Is it the leadership side of things? I talk a lot about leadership on my podcast, just exactly what you said, the embodiment behind, if you're talking about this, you better actually be doing it behind the scenes. I've seen way too many like sales coaches or business coaches or whatever that, say one thing online and then you see what's happening behind the scenes and you're like, whoa, I probably wouldn't hire you. So like, let's fix this. Or, you're defaulting on payments or you're whatever, and I think that that's huge with like personal brand, with marketing, just our audience can feel that. So would you say that's like the next step when it comes to personal branding, or am I skipping steps there?
There's probably a lot of different steps, but I would usually say like, yeah, getting that clarity around your story and then building that brand association, what you want it to look like, and then the leadership for sure. And then the next part is the communication. So how you're leading yourself online and offline for sure. Something I will add there though is almost the combination of emotional intelligence and duality, being able to hold duality. I've worked with a lot of clients that come to me and they say, I'm making okay money. I'm making, maybe 5-10K a month, but I'm not pushing through. And I did this post and it's just not got any likes, or, my engagement's down. I'm just fed up and I want to quit. And I'm like, you're reactive right now. You're in a state of like, you're only feeling valid and worthy as a personal brand if you're getting external validation. So if someone's posting on social media or whatever it is and something doesn't go their way and then they want to throw in the towel and quit on their business because they didn't get that external validation. So it's that emotional intelligence as a personal brand to be like, I know from my core, and this is the work that I do prior with my clients, I know that I've got these skills, I've got these talents, this passion, this natural gift, or I'm really good, I'm really qualified, whatever it is. If I do a post and it gets 2 likes instead of 500 likes, that doesn't change how good I am at my job or how good I am at my service or how good my brand is. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen there as well. It's that self-trust. And I don't really like to use the word confidence because I don't necessarily think I can teach confidence, but it's just that emotional intelligence to be like, you can keep going. You need to find that inner discipline. And things are going to happen around you. You might have a failed launch. That doesn't mean, oh, I launched and no one bought it and now I'm going to quit and I must suck and I'm just going to give up. No, that just, it wasn't, you were knocking on the wrong door or something wasn't aligned or something happened. We can look at that. So there's a big part in around leadership in that emotional intelligence part to refine as a personal brand, because you do need to consistently show up online. That is just the way that life is, and that's how you're growing your business. We're online business owners, right? So, and it can feel, draining. It's like, I've got to show up. Obviously you don't have to show up every single day. You can schedule your posts and all the different things, but you do need to have that consistency, and you have to have that consistency in yourself as well as the service provider, not just sitting behind your laptop feeling like crap and doubting yourself because you're not getting loads of engagement, doubting your abilities, thinking you should quit, getting tired with the results, and then online pretending to be something else. If that's not adding up, again, it's that online offline leadership and that emotional intelligence and that duality to be able to hold both. I am really good at what I do. I am on this mission. Actually, the mission and where I'm going is more important right now than the amount of likes that my posts are getting. Obviously, if there's a consistent low engagement, we'll look at that. That's like a different part, and you obviously want to grow your numbers, but you need to be able to hold that. Are you in business or not? If you're in business, it's going to be hard sometimes. You're the personal brand. You know you're good. You have these skills. You know what you're selling. Keep going, and then that's the when we look at the marketing and the communication from there.
Yeah, I like that. That's all like my bread and butter, that mindset piece that comes up. So I love that you brought that up when it comes to personal branding, because you're right. Like, I've had failed launches, but I'm still, successful to this day. I actually made a post yesterday where I talked about how the first time I launched hypnotherapy services. So I, had a year or two of business coaching, and then I launched my hypnotherapy services, got certified, and it was around Black Friday, and I was so excited. I was like, these are going to sell out. Like, this is going to blow up. People are so excited about this. I've been talking about it. And they were, I don't remember how much they were, but they were not like hundreds of dollars, and launched them and didn't make a single sale like that weekend. And I remember just being like, okay, and like shrugging my shoulders and being like, well, that's not the end of the world. Like, I'm going to figure this out. This is what I'm going to be known for because I love this so much and it's changed my life. And, so I just used kind of that like tenacity or that emotional intelligence that you're talking about, and was just like, okay, well, I got to figure this out. Like, obviously there's something wrong with my marketing. Maybe, there's some mindset piece here that I need to address, or maybe it's just like the compound effect. Like, I need to just keep talking about it. And those are all things that you can look at with a mentor. If you have like a personal brand mentor or a business coach, or, where you can look at those pieces, but sometimes it is just the strategy behind like, I need to hold myself through this void, or I need to, just keep showing up because I haven't talked about this enough, and people need to hear things again and again and again in order to, buy. Sometimes there are those buyers that do. And so I feel like I just love all of that, because there are going to be those hard moments. And I think that, I'm sure you with your clients too, like supporting them through those ups and those downs helps them also build a deeper personal brand, I'm sure. So
yeah, for sure. And then, like, obviously we've just touched on a little bit, it's like that confidence then comes from doing the hard thing and continuing to do it. Then the next step, like I mentioned, the marketing, they don't then feel like they have to copy people, or to, they see someone do a strategy that they're like, this is all shiny and amazing and this looks great, it's working for them, and then feeling like they have to do that. So again, that's where personal brand gets a little bit, I know we spoke off camera about this, where disrupting the norm, because there's so much copy and paste out there. People think that they have to do it step by step by step, or copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. When they really do this work that we've been discussing, and then that emotional intelligence, that leadership, the real self-discovery as well, they then don't typically fall into that copy and paste sort of style of content, because they're so solid in themselves and they have really regulated themselves. So that communication style is even more powerful, and they really know how to stand out, I guess, in a busy online space because of the foundations that are so solid.
yeah, I like that a lot. That leads me to just thinking, because this is something I've, had my clients ask me and I've heard online. I think there's lots of posts out there that's like the industry's oversaturated, like become the one, like you want, people to look at you and be like, she's for me kind of thing. And I know we're talking about the brand association too. And you mentioned that you're known for personal branding. Obviously, there are other people that are also known for personal branding. So how do you disrupt the norm and stand out, in a space that is busy? I don't want to say it's oversaturated because there's plenty of clients for everyone, but like what is the work that you do with your clients, even if they do have a similar brand association to other people?
I love this question so much because of course there's going to be other personal brand mentors, and it's the same for anyone listening to this podcast. There will be other people doing what you do, but that's not a bad thing. And people sometimes, like you said, get a little bit I guess worried about that, like the oversaturated sort of messaging that's out there. So you cannot lean into yourself enough, is what I will say. The more you see what other people are doing, you're like, oh, they did that, or they had a shoot in this way, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of like an example. If you see someone wearing something and they're like, oh, she looks like a boss, I'm going to get that outfit, just because it looks great on her, or it works for her brand, doesn't mean that you should then copy it. So the more you lean into yourself, the better, because you physically are not there's no duplicates of you. That's impossible. So the values that you have, the story that you have, your experiences, yes, your education, if that's important to what you do, your personality traits, what you care about, what you're passionate about. There's all of these parts, and obviously there's so much that we can talk about here, but values and like I said, characteristic traits, opinions on things. Like there's opinions that I have on the personal brand industry, and there's so much personal brand content out there now that I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'd say that or if I would do that. That's an opinion. Sometimes it's fact, sometimes it's opinion. So whatever it is that you do as the listener, really lean into that. What are your values? What are your beliefs? What's your natural passions? What are your natural gifts and skills, like I mentioned before? Leaning into that. And then don't be a carbon copy of content, of the branding that you see online. So if there's a really successful brand that's all blue, for example, doesn't mean that you have to use blues, or beiges doesn't mean that you have to use beiges. So just ask yourself, if I came across my page, would I feel like I've seen this page before? Something I ask myself often as well. But the more that you lean into, naturally you're separating yourself anyway.
So it is kind of leaning into those pieces of you that are different, and no one can copy your story either. Like the little pieces that both of us might talk about our dogs, but we're talking about it in a different way. So people can't steal that.
Yeah. There's definitely there's going to be similarities. Like I was bullied at school. I had a single mum parent who had, we had £0 to live off. There's so many stories. There might be other women that are personal brand mentors that also got bullied at school and came from a single parent, but they won't have the exact same mission to me, for example. So it's just making sure that your whole thing is really refined. Your story, your services, your opinions and beliefs around that, how you do things and how you deliver results, why you want to deliver that result for people and why you're the best at delivering that result, and then what mission you're on, because that's very hard to be copied, and that is very hard to come across an exact replica. That just won't happen. And like I mentioned, as an example as well, I'm sure there'll be some people that can relate to this that are listening. Social media managers, right? It's so easy to create top tips on how to go viral, or top tips on what to say to your story, and there's only so many colors in the world, so there's going to be people that have similar colors and similar advice on their story, on their grid, right? But the more they can come out and be like, I am the go-to for this area because this is my experience, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm naturally really freaking good at, these are the results I drive, this is where we're going, that's not so easy to be copied. So really leaning into that for sure.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And it is easy to look at other people and be like, oh, well, she's successful. This is something I talk a lot about, but oh, she's successful. So like, what am I doing that she's not? And like, why is it working for her? And I think everything that you just touched on, from the mindset piece to the brand association to the leadership to even just finding what differentiates you, is exactly how it works for you in your way. You know what I mean? So I love that. When it comes to so past the mindset piece, getting into the branding and marketing, something that I've noticed about your marketing is it's different than a lot of business coaches. I would say it isn't, like you do share a lot of your life. And I would say even like it leans towards like you sharing personal photos and like just different pieces of your life and stuff like that. And it doesn't lean towards like content creation, but it is just different. It's not the flashy graphics. It's not the, 5 tips to do this, which I really love. Can you talk a little bit about that and like why you lean into kind of that different style of content?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your opinion on it for sure, because obviously I'm so close to my own content, but I just think I've got so much to say. Like I really want to help people. It comes down to the fact that I just really want to help people, and I know my words help. So obviously when I work close proximity with a client, it's not just my words, it's action and implementation. But content wise, it pretty much is just words that I can share on the screen. So I really lean more into how can I share in a way that I just haven't heard before. And I know that sounds really cliche because I think everyone says that, but I do generally feel like I see a lot of the same thing over and over again online. And people even say like, I haven't heard anyone say this before, but I'm like, I definitely have heard people say that before. So the more you talk from personal beliefs and experiences, again, it's going to be tricky for you to have heard that before. So I just feel like I am definitely good with words. Like I'm definitely someone who like I always talk. I do talks and I speak, and obviously I have a podcast and all those different things. I love to speak, and that might not be something that all mentors like to do, and that's okay. People create courses and stuff. I also have a course, but I love to speak. So in my content, I'm like, how can I just deliver that in that communication style of just delivering and just really hoping that it lands and hits home with people. So it's not so much about like the tips and this do that, because I don't know who's reading that piece of content. That might not work for someone. Sure,
Yeah.
for sometimes I do share tips because it's across the board, this is great, and that's me just saying me personally. Sometimes I read tips online and I'm like, that's great, and I'm going to save it and it's really really good. But me personally, I'm like, I'd much rather get deep with someone. So if I can say something that's going to really just get people thinking and land for them and just get their cogs turning in their brain, that to me is where I want to take my marketing, rather than like a bank of education, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a way that you kind of balance the more personal content with more business related?
Yeah, I think it might seem like I share a lot, but I actually have so much that I have never shared online. So it's again strategy, right? I get that my audience and my community think that I share everything, but actually I don't. And again, that's just good personal branding. Everyone feels like they know me and they know everything that's going on in my life, but they don't. But I just know my boundaries now. Obviously, this is my job and this is what I do. So if you're not in personal brand and this isn't your thing, then just get to know yourself and understand what you're happy to share at a consistent level. I don't share pictures of my partner. Not that I'm against it. If he pops up one day, I think I might have done like a happy birthday post once, but it's not something that I share all the time. So if you've got a romantic relationship and you're like, I don't want to share my partner or my children, you don't have to. Like I don't share my partner or my family really on my business page at all. There's so much to my family life that I don't share. I don't share my home much. Like there's so much to it that I don't share. So it's just understanding your own personal boundaries and what makes sense for your strategy, what makes sense for your brand. What do you think is going to benefit people knowing? So my percentage is difficult to say because I've just been practicing it for so long, but I would say honestly it's about 60% business and 40% personal, if I'm going to put a number on it. But it feels to me it's a lot more business, and to my audience it might feel more personal just because that's what they're seeing. But actually it's all
Yeah.
very strategically positioned to build my business, even if it is personal. I don't know if that specifically answered your question, but that in a roundabout way, that's kind of how I do it.
No, it does, because I think it comes back to how you're sharing the stories and those pieces of your life. I mean, I've taken people through my entire journey from like moving states to breakups to, because I felt that it was important for me to share how my business supported every iteration of, my life, and now being married. And even I shared my wedding, I shared posts on that, and people didn't hire me because I was sharing these like pretty photos of my wedding, right? But they're hiring me because they feel like they know me, or they desire to also have a business that supports that longevity. So I totally understand what you're saying. It's like how you're sharing it. And I would say the exact same thing to my clients around, like, I think I probably posted 2 photos of my husband on my stories, and I just don't feel the need to share my family or my mom, or, face photos. So
Yeah.
I
And
think I
sometimes,
totally understand that.
yeah, sometimes you can tell stories without, and you can tell the parts that you want to tell without oversharing, right? Like, I'm getting married this year. Also, my audience probably know that by now. My community knows that. My clients know that. But again, it's not that I'm going to show you everything that I'm doing behind the scenes, like all of the admin and stuff. But I'll just, every so often, I'll just talk about it because my business is supporting us getting married. So that's another thing. It's that, again, it lands subconsciously, doesn't it, with people where they're like, oh, she's able to do this and she's going on this honeymoon, or she's going there for her hen do. It's not me saying, this is what I'm doing and just saying it for no reason. It's like, I do quite like sharing about the wedding. I think it's fun anyway. But again, it's like the business is fueling that. So it's just another part to my personal brand. But I don't necessarily use that as strategy. I'm just kind of sharing the bit that I want to at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think there is a connective piece that our audience likes to know us. They're maybe a little bit nosy and want to know what's happening behind the scenes.
And a massive part of personal brand, which we haven't yet spoken about, but this is something that if anyone takes anything away, this is really important. It's trust. So in just consumer behavior across the board, big corporate organizations have gained your trust because you see them as something big and trustworthy, because it's a massive organization like Apple, for example. You just trust them. You already know people that have an iPhone, people that have Macs. It's a big probably $billion company, right? So with corporate, it's easy to gain your trust quite quickly, but with humans, with consumer to personal brand, it's a lot different, because we are very much well aware that there's scammers out there. How many of you have had a DM where it's like, pay me $10,000 and I'll get you 10,000 followers? Those spammy messages that you get in your DMs, that they're most likely not true. It's spam, or it's fake, right? So we've got a little bit of conditioning to do here. So building trust with your audience is so critical when you're a personal brand, because if someone's going to pay you, if they're going to invest into you, especially if it's high ticket, they're going to be more reluctant if it's person to person and they don't know you and they haven't worked with you before, especially if it's a service, because you're not getting something sent to your home that's tangible. You're not getting a bottle of water in the post. You're getting a service. So it can be scary for people, even if they've invested before. I've invested for years and years and years, and it's still sometimes for me a little bit like, oh, I haven't worked with you yet. I'm not sure. Let me just think about it. And I get it. So if you're a personal brand, you have to build that trust. And the reason why I bring this up now is because talking about your wedding, if that's relevant, or talking about what you had for dinner, or sharing your coffee, or going out with friends, it's just building up the fact that you are a real human, and that you are actually someone that if someone pays you, it's not being taken and you're going to run away with it. It's like you build that character in your mind of a trustworthy source, right? So again, it's just a little bit of psychology of sharing images of your dog, or you talking about getting married, isn't necessarily going to convert someone to want to pay you, but it does help. It does help with the process of building that trust, for sure. And then the results and the transformation that you can get them will be the reason that they pay you.
Yeah. What are some other ways that people can build trust? Since I know you said that's like one of the most important pieces, like creating that safety for people to invest in you. Obviously, client conversations, testimonials, like stuff like that. But are there other ways as well too?
Yeah, for sure. So like I said, given behind the scenes, if you can, those client conversations, bringing in client stories and things like that. If you can go live with clients, even better. If they're commenting on your stuff, even better. But also tapping into your credibility, like what values, what lessons have you learned on your journey to where you are today? Because that builds a little bit of almost like they can relate as well. But you don't want to be too relatable in terms of being a friend. You want them to still see you as that expert and that authority, but still you want your audience to feel seen and heard. So that builds that trust, because they're like, oh my goodness, Chloe really understands me. So when I talk about my mum, for example, if I don't talk about her a lot. I've said this a few times on the podcast. I literally barely do it. But if I'm live and I'll say something like, my mum used to search for coins on the floor and we really couldn't afford to eat, and blah, 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 and all of this type of stuff, people will see the pain in that story for me. And then if they have something that they relate to, maybe they've come from a low income family, or maybe they've struggled financially. It could literally be anything. They could have gone through a divorce and struggled financially. They could have gone through low paying jobs themselves. Just they'll find their version of what connects. But just in telling those stories of your experiences and what you learned from it and how it's made you not necessarily better, but maybe stronger, for example, they'll then start to get that connection to you. So that builds trust as well. So even if it's funny stories, it doesn't always have to be something super, tough. It can be something funny, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example, but there could be just lessons that you've learned as well, that people will relate to. You have to think about what is the the sort of transformation that you're selling? What is the thing that you're selling? And how do these stories benefit that person in hearing that? So I wouldn't just tell them necessarily a random story for no reason. But again, people hearing real life experiences that they can relate to is going to build that trust. So yeah, all the typical things, client results, feedback, results for yourself as well, personal results, personal lessons, experiences, and just creating that behind the scenes connection as well.
Yeah, I love that. This has been amazing. I feel like so many people can go through this piece by piece and take like some tangible things that they can bring forward in their brand, think about their brand association and stuff. I was going to ask you actually, what's like the number one thing you want people to take forward from this? And it sounds like it's trust is like the bare bones of a personal brand, but do you have anything else that you feel like if you could just give one insight around personal branding, what would you say?
Yeah, I think to add on, I mean, I've spoken a lot, obviously, thinking about your story, thinking about your credibility, thinking about your mission, having that leadership, how you're moving offline as well, leaning into you and not copying people and all of that sort of stuff. But just remembering personal branding is like 2% about how your brand looks. Branding is important, but branding isn't necessarily brand. So if, like I said a million times in this episode, if you've seen someone's branding and it's all glitz and glam and you're like, oh, maybe I should be glitz and glam. If that's not you, it's a waste of time and effort and, all of the different things. So tapping more into you and just remembering that your brand is so much deeper than your branding. It is good to have consistent branding for sure. And you want to relate to it and you want it to speak to your audience and you want it to represent your services and all the amazing things. And you want to be happy with it for sure. But it's so much deeper. It's everything that we've spoken about today. It's that emotional intelligence, it's that duality, it's that confidence and clarity in what you actually do. What are you selling to people? If you're a personal brand and there's no tangible, I'm not sending you, like I said, a bottle of water in the post, what are you actually giving to people then? Because the more you can tap into that and why you're the person to give people this transformation, the more you show up with that clarity and that confidence, the more that you radiate that magnetism to your audience, the more that you're consistent, the more you keep going, the more that you build your brand, and then you build that brand association because you know specifically what you're great at. So I think just to kind of wrap it up is just remember that it's not all about what people see online. It's the movement, it's the deeper stuff. And don't overlook that, because so many people want results yesterday that they're just like, I'm just going to post this because it's going to go viral and hopefully I get loads of clients. And they overlook the foundational work so much that, they can be in business 5-10 years and then it kind of stagnates and they're like, why? And it's because they've missed out on all of this depth. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much that I
Yeah.
could say, but yeah. That
I love that. I feel like I have so many more questions about personal branding, so we might have to bring you back, but I just love all of that. The last question I have is if you see that there are any like trends in personal branding or stuff or anything like that for 2025, or if there are trends that are out there right now around personal branding that you feel like people should ignore, maybe just a little bit of insight there. Because it sounds like personal branding it's like building a business for the long term and not following the trends and really leaning into, what makes you different. So maybe you can just shed some light on some things that people should ignore this year and really lean into in regards to their own personal brand.
Okay, I love this. So the thing that I would ignore to a point is when people tell you have to quote unquote be more you or share more of you, because that gets people thinking I need to share more in terms of my home life or my partner, or my children, or things that I don't want to share. And then people spiral and they start they see it as a tick box exercise. They'll put a picture of them at the gym and be like, I shared my personal brand. But again, that's not it. It's so much deeper than that. So you can definitely share more of you if it feels good. Share, be more you if that feels good to you, if that makes sense for you. But I wouldn't stress yourself out with it. I wouldn't put pressure onto how can I be more me and how can I share more, because actually sometimes you don't need to do that if that feels uncomfortable, and you can just lean more into what are you bringing to the table for your audience, how are you changing their lives, and why do you care about it, why do your experiences make you the go-to for that, and really more so tap into your skills and your values and things like that over just like I haven't taken a picture of myself today and I'm at the gym and I need to post a picture. Like I would kind of ignore that. The trend, I would say, is hard with this because obviously personal brand is so bespoke for people. But what I would say is more people are being more real and authentic around the lessons that they've learned or the things that have gone wrong. This is especially good for mentorship because obviously people see mentors as, perfection. So if you're sharing, look, hey, I just did this and this went wrong, but this is how I've bounced back, that's also really attractive. So it depends what the listener's business model is. Even if you're like a personal trainer, for example, and you're like, right, I wanted to grow my glutes and then I tried this diet and it didn't work. Like, be open about it. We don't need to see you as this perfect thing to invest into. We just want to know what works and how you're going to help me. So if you've got stories that you want to share and you feel safe to share and it's relevant to share, it doesn't always have to be perfection for it to be good enough to go out. Sometimes actually the opposite attracts, and sharing your lessons sometimes actually brings in those aligned clients anyway. So I think, yeah, just more authentic content, being as authentic as possible and not being afraid to share things that haven't gone completely right in your business or in your world, and being open to making those connections from that.
Yeah, so being real,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I've loved all of this. This has been so fun, and I'm really excited to post this and have everyone just benefit from all these tips and stuff that you brought forward. And I feel like so many listeners too are going to be sitting like listening and thinking about their brand association because that I think is huge for people. So thank you so much for all of this.
You're so welcome. I could just give someone a piece of homework if they are thinking about their brand association. This is a task I give to my clients really, really quick. If you was pulled up on stage with, say, for example, Tony Robbins, and there's a room full of hundreds of thousands of people, how would you want to be introduced? What would you want the room to know about you straight away? How would you want them to feel? And if you was to then leave the room and everyone started talking about you, what would you want all of those people to say? Because if you don't know the answer to that, then you're kind of building your brand blind right now. So if you know the answer to that, it's like, right, when I stand up on stage, this is what I would say, this is how I'd be introduced, this is how I want everyone to remember me, this is how I want everyone to talk about me, then you're nailing your brand association. And then it's just about repeatedly communicating that in your content. So a little task. If you was getting pulled up on stage in front of millions of people or thousands of people, what would you want to be introduced as? But yeah, definitely digging into that, and just knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect. It can change. Like mine sometimes changes, and it has since obviously I was a social media manager to now. It's okay if it's not perfect, but just getting clarity on that for sure is really, really useful.
Yeah, that's super fun. They're also like I love the thought of evolution too, but that's such a good exercise. Kind of even thinking like if I was going to do a TED talk, what would I talk about? That's something that I've asked my clients. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also it's a fun like little visualization to be like I'm walking out on stage with Tony Robbins
Yeah.
introducing me. So that's fun.
Yeah. Literally. So fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I've loved
You're
this.
welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun. I hope this has been useful for everyone.
Yes, it has. So just wrapping up, where can we find you or where can the listeners find you?
So
We're going to have
on
your Instagram and stuff in the show notes. But yeah, just tell us where we can find you and how they can connect with you.
Yay, perfect. So my Instagram is at it's Chloe Co. So ITSCHLOECO. And the same on TikTok. On TikTok, I primarily are talking about my books right now. So that's more book talk for me. Instagram is very much business. And then I have a podcast called Give a Shift. And that's where you can find me.
Awesome. That's
Thank you
amazing.
so
So we'll
much.
have all those links below in the show notes for everyone that's listening. And definitely go follow Chloe and tell her, maybe just reach out and be like, this one thing really helped me in this episode because I know that's helpful for you. So
Oh my gosh, yeah, please do.
yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.